Fallout's games typically occur within the same timeline, but events between its games often happen off-screen, and in the case of Fallout 3, this happens to be one of those areas where a lot happens before Fallout 4 that you might have missed. I'm Mark from Digital Dissection. I make Fallout lore videos, and today we're taking a closer look at what happened between Fallout 3 and 4. One of Fallout's earliest quests tends to be that of the Wasteland Survival Guide, a book that NPC Moira Brown of Craterside Supply wants to write for the Wasteland, and the quest itself acts as a way for players to get acclimated to the Wasteland's many threats, but also for Moira to gain valuable information from many dangerous locales. The quest can involve either doing the work legitimately, or by possibly stretching the truth and collecting XP anyway. However you chose to do this, we're not judging. Okay, we're judging a little bit. While the quest itself may have been focused on purely for its rewards by players, the Wasteland Survival Guide as a survival tool didn't actually stop here. The book, published in 2277, quickly began spreading beyond Megaton and the surrounding area, reaching the Mojave Wasteland, Boston's Commonwealth, and even as far west as Philly in New California in 2296. Magazine issues number 1, 2, 4, and 6, based on the book, can be seen here in Fallout's first season within Ma June sundries. The traveling power of the book and its magazine form are indicative of its usefulness to Wastelanders, building their lives in Fallout's new world. And its ability to travel across the entire former United States is impressive enough on its own. Sierra Petrovita's Nuka-Cola obsession provides some color to the backdrop of Girdershade in Fallout 3. Her home is decorated with the drink manufacturer's merchandise, and her oddly cheery demeanor is a stark contrast to the Capital Wasteland. She's largely protected by Girdershade's only other citizen, a man named Ronald Laren that she's blissfully unaware has a crush on her. During the events of Fallout 3, Petrovita's willingness to pay the player for Nuka-Cola is fun for an easy way to make extra caps. But after the game's events, she'd choose to leave the Wasteland in search of possibly the biggest Nuka-Cola collectible ever in 2287. Leaving her home temporarily, Sierra would have her sights set on Nuka World, the amusement park located in Bradburton, Massachusetts. Similar to her ability to live within a very dangerous area of the Capital Wasteland, she managed to survive the difficult journey, making relationships with the raiders of Nuka World itself, and using an old children's decoder to find clues to the founder of Nuka-Cola itself, John Caleb Bradburton, who is now being kept alive underneath the ruins of Nuka World. Sierra's ability to survive and traverse the wastes is truly something to behold, but Girdershade is either likely abandoned or is now only inhabited by Ronald. Robert Joseph R.J. MacCready is the mayor of Little Lamplight in 2277 and operates the child-run settlement in the former cave attraction near to Vault 87. Little Lamplight, of course, exiles its residents when they turn 16, and they then move on to the nearby settlement of Big Town. MacCready was one of many characters to move from Fallout 3 to 4, but why we chose to focus on him as opposed to Dr. Madison Lee is because he has some context to share as to the state of the Capital Wasteland beyond Fallout 3's events. After MacCready aged out at 16, he'd begin wandering the wasteland rather than follow in the footsteps of his Big Town brethren. The former mayor went on to find work as a mercenary in the DC ruins, becoming a talented soldier for hire, leading to a violent way of making a living. He goes on to detail, however, that the growing influence of the Brotherhood of Steel in the region slowly eroded the work MacCready depended on to provide for his then-wife Lucy and son Duncan. After the death of Lucy and Duncan contracting a rare illness, he'd leave for the Boston Commonwealth in search of better finances and a possible cure for his son. He does disclose that he misses the Capital Wasteland, speaking positively about Galaxy News Radio and its host 3Dog. He also comments that the area doesn't have much need for his services anymore, which could mean that a relative sense of order and stability remains there. Fallout 3 actually foreshadowed its predecessor Fallout 4 by design, and it took form in the side quest The Replicated Man. The story behind the side quest involves Dr. Zimmer, director of the Institute's Synth Retention Bureau, and he's after an escaped synth named A321, who is later discovered to be Rivet City's security chief, who now goes by Harkness. The mention of Boston's Commonwealth and the Institute introduced players to the future timeline that includes the fight between the futuristic organization and the Railroad. But synths in the Capital Wasteland actually don't stop here. Paladin Danse of the Brotherhood of Steel is also found to be an escaped synth, one that was classified as such by the Institute. But he also lived a life in Rivet City as a junk vendor before joining the Brotherhood alongside his friend Cutler. What's clear about this process is that during the events of Fallout 3 and after, the railroad continues to operate successfully in the area, but they were able to do this removed from the paranoia of Boston's citizens, who fear being replaced by synthetic life forms. While Dance insists that he has childhood memories, it's more likely he was wiped by the railroad and given false ones. But he became so well ingrained within Rivet City that no one would have ever questioned his story. This level of success even stretches to Fallout 4's Deacon, who, while not a synth himself, at one point also traveled to the Capital Wasteland, likely on a mission for the railroad. And we can confirm that this was after Fallout 3's events. Deacon discloses that he remembers the Brotherhood actually being nice during his time in DC, and we know that this was after the Brotherhood Enclave war in the area because Project Purity was operating, and he also goes on to detail that clean water is widely available there. While Deacon can't be trusted with the stories he typically tells, it would seem odd that he would make up both facts and get both of them correct. MacCready also discloses the same information, that clean water is readily available in the Capital Wasteland, giving a stronger case that this is indeed a reality. Regardless, it means that the Purifier continued to heal the wasteland for a time, and according to the Fallout 3 official Game Guide Collector's Edition, this carries to at least 2297. Of the new lore added in Fallout 3, cultists were not in short supply, but as most players headed to Megaton after leaving Vault 101 can tell you, the Children of Adam are likely the first that you'll encounter. The religious group worships the undetonated bomb at the center of this settlement, but if you didn't engage with them much beyond here, you might have missed just how far the group's influence began to spread during and after the events of the game. The group worships Adam, viewing weapons of mass destruction as holy tools of creation, believing that the world was created when the atom was split. Each nuclear detonation, therefore, creates an infinite amount of universes. This rhetoric began its life in Megaton initially, as its first settlers found the bomb and built their town around it. Gradually, more arrived in time, and the Church of Adam peacefully lived alongside this new community. In the decades that followed, however, during and after Fallout 3, the religious group would send its followers outside the Capital Wasteland, reaching to the Boston Commonwealth and Far Harbor of Maine. The group, however, varies based on location, as some are instantly hostile towards the player, while others observe a more neutral position. Those that live in the glowing sea of Boston maintain weaponry as an example, but will not attack the player without a good reason. While they may not be the largest of Fallout's organizations, the group's influence is growing and may continue to expand into Fallout's future. The Enclave are traditionally viewed as the evil faction in Fallout, and for good reason. They really do like their genocide. That's not slander either. They believe in themselves as the only pure humanity to survive Fallout's Great War, and their atrocities stretch across the entire former United States. Fallout 3 marked yet another decisive strike against the Enclave's ranks, as they're stopped at Project Purity, and again at Adams Air Force Base in the game's DLC Broken Steel. The forces that managed to gather in the Capital Wasteland are left scattered by the game's completion, and shortly before this occurs in 2277, an Enclave scientist named Dr. Whitley of Adams Air Force Base sends a Duraframe iBot named Eddie to share massive amounts of data on Poseidon Energy with Enclave Camp Navarro in New California. What Whitley didn't know was that Camp Navarro was actually wiped out by the New California Republic in 2246, decades before, and with their defeat at Raven Rock in DC, and now Adams, what potentially remains of the Enclave could include a potential detachment in the Midwest, and a large contingent seen in New California during the events of Fallout's first season on Amazon Prime. The super mutant threat in the Capital Wasteland was a major reason for the Brotherhood of Steel's exploration of the area, and by Fallout 3's events they've created massive groups scattered across the DC ruins that are always in search of more wastelanders to capture and turn into more super mutants. By the end of Fallout 3, though, their base of operations at Vault 87 has been destroyed, where their main sources of forced evolutionary virus were originally from, as they've gradually run out the longer they've existed there. Mutants with higher levels of intelligence did manage to develop through this system, despite Vault 87's strain of FEV creating a breed of lesser intelligence overall. But with Fox and Uncle Leo as a few examples, there's another smarter super mutant who emerged by the name of Shepard. By the 2280s, the remaining Capital Wasteland mutants were tribal in nature, and having so many disparate branches of the faction caused Shepard to rise through the ranks as a warlord, gathering forces together one by one to hopefully serve as a massive army capable of defeating even the largest of Fallout's factions. Shepard, however, would not see his dream come to fruition, as he would be killed by Arthur Maxson, who was only 15 years old at the time. The mutant threat to the Capital Wasteland seemed to finally be close to an end due to the actions of Maxson, but this was only a snippet of the impact he had on the area. The Brotherhood of Steel once sent Owen Lyons from its West Coast chapter to travel east to search for a lost detachment, but they would also want to address a rumor of a super mutant threat in former Washington, D.C. The decision would prove critical to the future of the area, but after Fallout 3, a considerable amount happens for Lyons and the Brotherhood stationed there. Lyons, of course, led a tumultuous time with the faction, disregarding its charter of acquiring valuable technologies and instead helping the innocent DC civilians. It split the Brotherhood in two, creating the Brotherhood outcasts and being forcefully cut off by the West Coast Brotherhood leaders. While many held Lyons' shift and focus honorable, others did not agree. But shortly after Fallout 3's conclusion, the Elder would pass away around 2278 or 2279, shortly after the war with the Enclave. His daughter Sarah then took up the mantle of leadership, only to then die in combat herself roughly around the same year. The vacuum that formed creates a direct path for Arthur Maxson to rise to power, becoming the youngest Elder ever at the age of 16. With Arthur being the last surviving member of the Brotherhood's founder Roger Maxson, it was likely a no-brainer decision for the Brotherhood's leaders. After displaying his ability to end the super mutant threat by defeating Shepard and reuniting the Brotherhood and its outcasts, he'd resume the mission that Lyons disregarded years before. He would leave DC for the Boston Commonwealth in search of the source of a massive energy surge caused by the Institute. Under Arthur's leadership, the Brotherhood would also create the Prydwen from resources discovered at Adams Air Force Base after defeating the Enclave, an asset now used to advance the faction's ideals and travel the skies across the former United States. Fallout 3's main character is one of several series protagonists that are potential saviors of their time, but what happens after their stories are told? The Lone Wanderer's extensive influence on the Capital Wasteland is one that includes a fair amount of ambiguity, but based on Fallout 3's DLCs, this individual impacts the Brotherhood-Enclave War, the fate of post-war Pittsburgh, as well as Point Lookout in Maryland. They even thwart Zetan operations on Earth, conquering two of their motherships in orbit. As to the years following Fallout 3, there are a few pieces of data that we can look to for the Wanderer's legacy. Set 10 years after Fallout 3, and occurring shortly before Fallout 4 itself, information can be found in the game Fallout Shelter Online. Fox of the Capital Wasteland can be encountered in-game, and discloses that traveling with the Wanderer taught him to think before acting, but that the character had gone missing previously to Shelter Online's events. Fans, however, have disagreed over placing too much emphasis on this story, as the game isn't widely accepted as part of the series canon. In looking at the Fallout 3 Official Game Guide Collector's Edition, this provides a much more interesting story within its afterword. A terminal entry written by Moira Brown of Craterside Supply and Megaton. Moira goes on to chronicle that the Capital Wasteland's inhabitants are better off due to the Wanderer's efforts, and stories about the character exist amongst the many citizens that all have a unique memory to share. She's begun writing a biography about the Wanderer as a result, 20 years after the conclusion of Fallout 3, and a majority of her issues in doing so revolve around the many conflicting tales about them. The Wanderer, however, seemed to be somewhat polarizing as well, as according to Moira, public opinion at some times shifts between the Wanderer's barbarity, but also to their heroic acts and positive influence towards the area. By 2297, however, the Wanderer seems to have survived to being at least middle-aged, but no one ever truly got to know them, and they're still out there in the wastes, growing their reputation, one settlement at a time. And with that, we thank you for joining us as we explored what happened next after Fallout 3's events. Are there any facts about the post-game world that we missed? Let us know in the comments. And for more content from the world of Fallout, check out additional videos linked here, where you can find more weekly content about specific topics from the series. And until next time, pop culture nerds, keep on dissecting. This is Mark signing off.